Thanks for tuning into another edition of Another Dolphins podcast. And if you've been listening to any of our shows lately, you're learning that we really like to have friends on the show. Joining us today, joining Joshua Houtz and I, Efren Ramos, Finn's Cuts on Twitter. Efren, where to begin? We went to Web Weekend together. We've cried as Dolphin fans together. You're a successful Boston Celtics fan. Where do we start this path?
Well, I think we could start real quick. Just, I'm a Dolphins fan, so I have a little bit of love for the Miami Heat. But honestly, it's the Celtics, and we did it. We won a championship. Just so that you guys know what we're going to experience in a few months here at the end of the season. It is really nice. We're going to enjoy this. It's going to last forever. Dolphins fans will get ours. So I'm glad that I'm going to have two in less than a year. So
famous last words, right?
Yes.
Joshua, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. As always, I mean, the kids are running amok. We're recording this a little bit later, so if I run away as usual or you hear kids screaming, that's just typical Houtz. But what are your thoughts on the draft? I know that's pretty much the talk of the town right now, other than the Florida Panthers, which I guess we got to give them a shout out, right? Winning the Stanley Cup. But what about the NBA draft? Don't you guys have any takes on some of these players that your favorite teams drafted?
My biggest gripe about the NBA draft is it was an entire day leading up of there's going to be more trades happening. There's going to be more drama. And it just didn't really pan out. When you see someone like Mikal Bridges go for 4 first-round picks, that kind of just warps every type of vision you have for making some sort of drama. So it's kind of like the NFL draft in the sense you don't see that much movement in the first round. But it just seemed like ESPN did a really strong job of saying, we know something's going to happen, and then it just didn't really happen.
Yeah. Honestly, to me, it was a little bit jarring seeing picks traded in 2030 and 2031.
Yeah, dude.
I'm like, holy cow, what year are we living in? It's 20 like that. It was nuts. And also a lot of Frenchmen and a lot of white guys in this draft. I think that was a little bit different. It's unorthodox. It's very weird. It's a weird draft. This might end up being like one of the worst ever, which honestly is like fun for me. But yeah, no, the NBA draft is a lot of fun, but I'm already getting the Dolphins itch, honestly. That's what I'm excited for now. There's a lot of good stuff going on, guys.
You're excited for Twitter to erupt when Tua Tagovailoa holds out that first day?
No. No bad vibes, guys. Come on. No bad vibes. No.
Efren, Finn Mania. So something I speak a lot about on the show is the web weekends the Miami Dolphins used to do. I met Kat down there. I met you down there. I believe you weren't there. So I've gone 2 years. So obviously the world revolves around me. The first year I was there, you weren't there. But I think the second year with the Houston Texans game where the Dolphins scored. Oh boy, I can't. They had more points than the Texans had yards in the first half. If I remember correctly.
I think it was like 42 points. Was it something like that?
Dude, first drive, Rashard Matthews at the 50-yard line takes a slant to the house. Oh, my God, man. What an excellent, excellent game to be at. But, I mean, what have you been up to since then, Efren? What can you tell us about yourself?
Well, honestly, one of the things that I remember most from that weekend, so it was they played the Titans, and then the week after, when we were there, it was the Houston Texans. Tannehill had a streak of completed passes that broke the NFL record.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember it was in the Guinness Book of World Records. And I was so pumped. I went to wherever, I think it was Barnes & Nobles, and I went and bought that Guinness Book of World Records just because Tannehill was in it. That record didn't last very long. I think Tom Brady broke it like soon after. I forgot what it was. But, I was writing for Fin Maniacs with Louis Sung. Who were you guys? Who were you with back then?
Cover 32.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it was kind of cool because it was like little factions of Dolphins blogs that were like meeting each other for the first time. We were like, oh, I know those guys. But like at the same time, it was a little competitive because we were all there to win something.
Yep.
That was like a once in a lifetime thing, man. I'll always cherish that.
It was kind of like a Jerry Seinfeld moment because he has a little skit where he talks about trying to meet friends when you're an adult and it just doesn't really work because everyone's just kind of doing their own thing. But Web Weekend was so great because you could just be like, you like the Miami Dolphins? I like the Miami Dolphins. Let's be friends. And then it just kind of went from there. But Efren, we are so excited to have you today. We are going to be playing a game of Rate My Take, setting the tone for the month of July. So can you lay some groundwork for us? What our viewers if you're watching on 560 WQAM, what they can expect in the next, half an hour or so?
All right. Without further ado, hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of Rate My Take, where our guests battle it out to see who has the hottest take without boiling over and popping the thermometer. Our guest today is Joshua Houtz and Jake Mendel. You guys know them from Another Dolphins podcast. They are here to, give us, the rules of the game. Let me break it down for you real quick. So, I'm going to pose a question, the same question to the both of them, and I will rate whether or not their take on the question is too hot to the point where, no, that's definitely not going to happen, or too cold where I'm like, why even bring it up? So, let's go ahead and get started real quick. I know this man is still a sore subject for a lot of you. It sure is for me. It breaks my heart, the things that happened. But, life moves on and we need to keep it going. So question number one, I need a take from each of you. One take, whatever take you want to make. What will life after Christian Wilkins be like for the Miami Dolphins? Jake, I'm going to start with you because you're on my left, and that's the way I want to do it. So go ahead and get started. What's your take on Christian Wilkins?
I think there's a lot of attention directed at the fact that you had Christian Wilkins and Zach Sealer on the same defensive line. Two guys who ranked in the top 4 of defensive snaps played last season, and it's just kind of been Miami's dynamic duo in the trenches. With Christian Wilkins now out of the picture, sadly so, I don't want to talk about the defensive tackle position. Zach Sealer is going to be Zach Sealer, and everything after that's going to be kind of just winging it. But what the Dolphins did do with the plan is they revamped the linebacking core with Jordan Brooks and Anthony Walker. I think the Dolphins have genuinely tried to put a focus on defending the middle of the field. This is a division. The AFC East is a division loaded with strong running backs. James Cook, Breece Hall. Ramondre Stevenson just signed a 4-year, $36 million extension. That speaks to what the Patriots are trying to do. They're going to run the ball with Drake May at quarterback. And then, not to bring up the dark times, when you consider that Justice Hill had 5 receptions for 64 yards and a touchdown, 5 carries for 64 yards and a touchdown, along with 3 receptions for 48 yards. Justice Hill, right? There are huge issues with how the Miami Dolphins were schematically last year. And while we do like to kind of focus on the trenches when you look at how powerful a player like Christian Wilkins is, I think the Dolphins are going to look at the equation so differently this year, where they're going to force teams to be uncomfortable. I wouldn't say it was simple in years past, but hey, let's run away from the trenches. Let's run away from Christian Wilkins. That seemed like a sound strategy for years, and opposing offenses did that to the Dolphins. I'm looking forward to seeing something different in Anthony Weaver's defense, and I think it starts with Jordan Brooks, Anthony Walker, and that linebacking group.
All right, so, okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Your take here is that we're going to be better against the run next year, and that's due to the investments that they've made into the linebacking core.
Exactly.
Okay. So, I'll reserve my thoughts and scoring until I hear what Josh has to say, because I do have some thoughts myself. So, Josh, what do you think here? Do you have something? Do you have a take for us?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I went right to linebacking. I made sure I wrote Jordan Brooks down. I wrote David Long down.
We're
but
awesome.
What makes this show so good is how we have to think on the fly, right? So I'm going to quickly try to transfer my attention and focus to the hot take being that what is going to make this defense truly game-changing and different than years past is going to be not so much the personnel and thing like that, but the defensive coordinator, Anthony Weaver. I think he's coming in here hungry. We heard that he was a finalist, for some head coaching jobs. We know what he's done with Baltimore all throughout the league. I'm not looking at what he did with the Houston Texans. I think him coming in here, having an open mind, trying to revolutionize the defensive side of the football, a la like we've seen with Mike McDaniel on the offensive side, and using all those different pieces he has, right? Jake mentioned the linebacker unit, but for me, it's always been those pass rushers up front. Yes, Christian Wilkins is great. Zach Sealer is great, but it's those guys coming off the edge. Yes, they're starting the season, probably on pup, maybe a little bit banged up. But when you get them back, you have a Chop Robinson. Then you have that secondary, which arguably is even better. You now have a defense corner that seems like he cares. I don't even know where I'm going with this take, but I think this defense will be better this year. And after sitting there and praising and hoping and praying that we got Vic Fangio, that pains me a little bit to say.
Okay. I'm going to have to be real with the both of you. And you guys both busted the thermometer here. I cannot imagine that with all those changes and Vic Fangio being gone, Christian Wilkins being gone, I don't think immediately that the Dolphins become better at the front. I just don't see it happening in the short term. I think, maybe towards the end of the season, once things start gelling and things like that, perhaps. I think maybe they finish the year strongly, but I have a very hard time imagining that the Miami Dolphins start the season as a, top end defensive line. I just can't see it. And, the linebackers, the investments there will help, but this is it's going to be new, it's going to be new verbiage and all that stuff with Vic Fangio gone. That's a whole different culture. So I think that the take that you guys are making that we're going to be better, that's just too hot for me. That thermometer broke, fellas. It's too hot.
Hear me out, though. I think the Dolphins' defense by the end of last season had a clear weakness, and it was attacking the outsides on the run game, and you could isolate against cornerbacks. I just think that maybe the Dolphins can maybe sneak by with some top-tier talent with a Jalen Ramsey. Maybe a Jalen Phillips is healthy and can help force a couple turnovers early in the year. And I look at someone also like Jordan Poyer. 419 snaps lined up in the front seven last year. So looking at the linebacking core, I think what the Dolphins defense is going to do is they're just going to take away those easy plays, the easy dump offs, make people really what we wanted out of the Vic Fangio defense. I think one thing that people are kind of misconstruing is the idea that the Vic Fangio defense and the Anthony Weaver defense are entirely different. They're really not. The way how often they blitz, when they blitz, how often they play in cover one is all very similar. So I just think it's going to be those pre-snap looks, bringing Jordan Poyer into the box, getting those linebackers out wide to a situation they could be comfortable. I'm definitely not trying to rebuttal my take here, but I think there's an interesting dynamic coming where we're going to see this Dolphins defense maybe not be, super flashy. And if you remember the beginning of last year in Vic Fangio's defense, they weren't really creating turnovers. And I hope that's the difference here. They might give up a couple more yards early in the year. Let's hopefully get a couple turnovers to negate that.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see, the secondary taking a step up and, the linebacking core really meshing. But really, I mean, when the question comes down to Christian Wilkins, and I think that the defensive line is going to take a hit, at least to start. I can't imagine that, I don't know. He's just such a personality that it's going to be a bit of a vacuum. Now, I'd be happy if it funneled back to the linebackers and they had some success, but I think it might be hard at first. I think it's going to be hard at first. But I appreciate your guys' take, but I just don't agree. I think it's going to be rough. I think it's going to be rough for us. It's not to say we're going to have a bad defense. I just think that defensive line might be a little Swiss cheesy sometimes. But yeah, let's go ahead with the next question. You guys both have -1 point because you went over. So now this one is going to be a little bit funner. Who on the Miami Dolphins will finish number 3 and number 4 in receptions this year? That is question number 2, and I want to hear your takes. There are no obvious answers, in my opinion. It could be anyone. But I want to hear who you guys have in mind.
Who's going first on this one? You want Joshua? You want me to go first? I can go first again if you want. Yeah, all right. So I think we've had 2 years of the Mike McDaniel saga, and we're starting to see some trends. This might be hard to believe, but a tight end has been third on the Miami Dolphins in targets in each of the last 2 years. Durham Smythe was third last year. Mike Gesicki was third the year before. And the Dolphins target tight ends fewer than any other team in the NFL, and yet you had these two guys who were third on the team in targets. That absolutely is wild. That math doesn't make sense. And you know what doesn't make sense? Saying that a 5'9", 188-pound running back will be third, but I am here to say it. Devon Achane has spent this entire offseason working on gaining muscle, working on his route running. I think the Dolphins have been absolutely begging for a running back to show themselves as a receiver. People forget, Raheem Mostert from the end of October to the beginning of January, he was averaging 1 target per game. We had games where Jeff Wilson got 4 targets. Some of that was Devon Achane banged up. But I genuinely think that what the Dolphins are trying to do is have that one outlet, that dump-off outlet that can be an absolute player who just dominates underneath. And I think Devon Achane can really be that. I know Odell Beckham's going to bring a new dynamic, but I look at Achane being that number 3. And Josh, I'm praying I don't step on all your toes here, but one of the things I love about Achane is that he led the league in yards after contact per attempt last season with nearly 5 yards after contact. That blows my mind. And when you think about, yes, he's 5'9", 190 pounds. I'm not going to doubt him. He ran for over 1,000 yards in the SEC. He can do it. But at the same time, if we can throw him the ball a little farther away from the trenches where he's not surrounded by 300-pound, big, ugly defensive linemen, I think that will do wonders for him, do wonders for the offense. And when you consider he played only 11 games last year, there's still some room for growth for him to be more a consistent piece of that offense. And I think he will be number 3. And number 4, despite being the least targeted position in the entire league, being the Miami Dolphins tight ends, I'm ready to see Jonnu Smith come in 4th on that food chain. That's my final prediction. I think we're going to go Tyreek, Waddle, Achane, Jonnu Smith is my top 4.
Okay, noted. Josh, you're number 3 and you're number 4 in receptions next year in the Miami Dolphins. Go.
Yeah, no, I like this. I'm glad I wrote down a couple guys because going second, I'm fine with it. Either way, first for me, number 3, I got Jonnu Smith. Played 17 games last year. There were times I had him in fantasy football where I've talked about on previous podcasts. I did not know if it was Kyle Pitts or Jonnu Smith out there. We know he brings a different element. He can pick up yak. He's not going to block, but he picks up yak and can make plays after the catch. Caught 50 of 70 targets last year for 582 yards, 2 touchdowns. He would be my number 3. And then number 4, as much as I wanted to put Devon Achane like you, Jake, I went with Odell Beckham Jr. I don't know that he's going to put up as many yards as he had last season. I'm sorry if you hear a goat. I do not know what that is in the background. 565 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think it's Marino back there. I think these guys combined will have, they might not put up those flashy numbers yards-wise. They might not see a ton of receptions, but Jonnu Smith, I think, is going to put up yards. I think Odell Beckham Jr. is going to put up the touchdowns, and I think those guys will be number 3 and 4. I love your Achane thought, but for me, it's Jonnu Smith, Odell Beckham Jr. What do you say, Efron? You upset with that? Would you have Odell Beckham Jr. that clear-cut number 3?
So in my my true belief is that I agree with Josh. I think it's going to be Jonnu Smith and Odell Beckham. But this isn't a game of cool takes, regular old takes. This is hot takes. And I need to hear what Jake told me. I need to hear in my ear, Devon Achane. He's going to be number 3 in receptions. What does that mean? That means it's going to be a lot of receptions. And that would get me very excited. I've seen a lot of reports of him lining out wide. And you hear it all the time. Oh, this running back is lining out wide in camp. Oh, okay, let me see it in the game. And when it's in the game, oftentimes it's just, a very, basically a decoy a lot of the times where he's just running, a very simple route or something like that. No, I want to see it for real. I want to see Achane burning a route tree from out wide. I want to see him catching from the back. I want to see the fake no-look dump off. I want to see those. I want to see it all. Give it all to me. So if he is number 3, man, that's good things for the Miami Dolphins. So, Josh, your take is probably going to end up being the correct one, but it's just lukewarm. No points for Josh. You didn't lose any, but no points. And Jake, that's the heat that I need without getting too crazy. Now, if you said something like Eric as a comma, that would have busted the thermometer for sure. I would love it if that happened. But yeah, that's just too hot. Jake, that was a great answer.
Two thoughts or 2 questions I want to ask you guys because it surprised me. What were your guys' thoughts when I said that Mostert averaged just 1 target, not even 1 reception, 1 target per game from late October to January? Because I think that there's a lot of people who kind of see Mostert as that receiving back, and I think he can do an okay job at being like the swing pass or the screen pass. But I think once you get outside of that, I don't want to say lose the trust because Raheem Mostert, he's a 31-year-old, ran for over 1,000 yards, led the league in rushing touchdown. He's a stud. But I just think that there was just something not clicking with him in that receiving game.
Well, honestly, sometimes you see it where a running back towards the end of his career will catch a little bit more than actually line up and run down the middle. I can see that happening with Mostert, and he's going to be on the field a lot, no matter what. And a good way to preserve him is to not have him bump right through the middle. So honestly, I could see him taking some for sure. I would appreciate it, actually, if they did kind of throw him the ball a little bit more to preserve the legs, maybe give him a few more miles down the road.
One real quick thing about Achane. There was a game I was going back and doing every drop back like I try to do for YouTube, and he's against the Raiders, and Achane lined up wide. I think an empty backfield, might have been a 5 wide receiver set. He was out wide, beat the corner, but he kind of slowed down. It would have been an 80-yard bomb for a touchdown. So he does have that skill set. He just needs to, probably get used to the position and things like that, because that's a speed demon that, a linebacker, a nickel, guys like that just cannot keep up with.
Yeah, we still haven't seen, maybe Deebo Samuel is the closest thing, but, that guy in the NFL that can truly do both. A lot of the times it's a guy who's a receiver who can do running back stuff, or a running back that can do receiver stuff. I'd be fascinated to see, the NBA, this stuff is happening every day with the unicorns that are coming in. I think one day we will see that guy who, when he lines up at receiver, he looks like a receiver. When he lines up at back, he looks like a back. Now that kind of guy, do you want him doing that much? And if he can do it, you want to preserve him. But wouldn't that be cool? I can see that happening one day. But question number 3, and this is a good one. This is a fun one. Who will be the worst team in the AFC East this season?
Go ahead, Joshua Houtz. Let's
yeah,
hear
Josh first.
I mean, I want to change my answer maybe because of, I got to try to hit this meter, but it has to be the New England Patriots, right? I wrote down New England Patriots. I don't think they're going to be quite as bad as a lot of people think. I think it's a changing of the guard type thing. Does sound like Jacoby Brissett might start earlier. And as a Dolphins fan, we all remember those times. So I think it's going to be. No, yeah. And Drake May might pick it up later in the year, but he's still a rookie. I know that defense will probably be better than expected, but for me, it has to be the New England Patriots, barring some, catastrophic injury, and I don't want to wish that upon anybody. So I think it's the New England Patriots. It's nice to see them being the cellar dwellers, for a couple, we're going to maybe hit 5 years, after the decades they ran rampant on us. But that's my lukewarm prediction. You can just call it lukewarm right now if you want.
You're playing it safe. You're playing it conservative. You're not going to lose points. So.
I thought my wild take was supposed to come at the end, and even that I'm looking at. I'm like, dude, you left the wild at home this time.
No, get crazy without getting too crazy. All right, Jake. AFC East. Who's the bottom team?
It all comes down to.
You know what? Real quick, let's go back to Josh real quick to make this more interesting. Can you give us number 2 and number 3, assuming Dolphins are number 1? What the order will be?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. It's probably Dolphins, Bills, Jets, Pats.
Okay, so you're the control. You're in the control in this experiment, because that's pretty much how I got it too, and probably pretty much everybody else. But Jake, can you shake things up a little bit?
I think it all boils down to Aaron Rodgers, and I think we all understand that the Jets are the Jets, and I think that's so important to keep in mind. The Patriots in each of the last 3 years, I believe, have been top 5 in terms of not missing tackles. That defense has been so stout despite the offensive struggles, the McCorkle disaster, whatever that was. Bill Belichick's gone. Gerard Mayo's taking over. That's important to keep in mind. But I think the Patriots kind of have a strong foundation to be a team that can hold opposing, offenses to 17 to 20 points a game. And it's all about throwing that mud together to get to 21, 24 points a game. You have David Andrews at center. You actually have a pretty solid offensive line in New England, and you are going to really base things around Ramondre Stevenson and that rushing attack. And as much as I want to say that the Jets are instantly going to finish in last, that's really not the case. But I mean, we're kind of in a weird spot where if we really wanted to ask ourselves if we trust a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers to come out, snap number 1, and be that same guy, I mean, that I don't think we can do that, and I don't think we should do that. If Rodgers plays 17 games, is he going to win more games than Drake May? I 100% think so, but there are so many variables with the Jets, and they are such a the Dolphins haven't won a playoff game in 20 years, and it pains me. And I don't want to do the famous last words thing, but the Jets have been like the perfect case study of just an absolute disaster for so long that despite things looking good, we've reached a point where we have room to grow as Dolphin fans, but what was at one point that so Dolphins is definitely that so Jets.
So what's your order? Assuming Dolphins are 1, how does it fall out?
I still want to stay the same. I do think it's like a 55 to 45 where I want to put the Jets in 3rd and the Patriots in 4th. not to steal the show here, but is there any scenario where we could see the Bills falling out of a top 2 spot? Because when you think about what they did, they lost a lot of receivers. They're really going to rely on James Cook and Josh Allen to do a lot of the heavy lifting, and we've seen that. But is there any world where they're trying to just piece together 9 wins, and the Patriots, they check off the Jets twice, if in a scenario where that defense is really stout? You never know. But I do think this is a division where you could see all 4 teams pretty close, and this being one of the more competitive divisions in football.
All right. So this is Rate My Take. This is my show. I'm the host. I ask the questions, Jake. So I still need a final answer.
My thermometer broke from Jake on that take about the Bills not being second.
We're playing a game here still. Give me your answer. Now, I'm just saying, get hot and how does this shake out? The rankings in the AFC East.
God, if I wanted to get really hot, I'd say Bills, Pats.
Can I put the Jets second? Can I go back and put the Jets second? Would that change your opinion of me at all? Because I'm sitting here thinking, if I'm picturing a healthy Aaron Rodgers, which I kind of am, they're going to be pretty damn good. So, and you want a hot take? I don't know. Sorry, Jake. Now I'm stealing your show. I'm out.
Nah, dude. This is our show. That's why it's Another Dolphins podcast. But there's so many variables and so much that's going to happen in 17 games. I just have such a hard time looking at that Jets roster, no matter how good it is, and seeing everything fall into place for them. I'm going to lock it in, and I want it to be spicy, but I won't. I will just say the Dolphins, Bills, Pats, Jets. F the Jets. Don't even need to bleep it out. I'll be professional and leave it at that.
Well, you see the way I'm looking at it, and you both get 1 point, so it's a wash. But honestly, in the NFL, anything can happen. So there is no hot take for what team can end up first and last, in my opinion. We could see the Bills down there just because, if all it would take is Drake May being better than we expect and Aaron Rodgers playing all 17 games. And that could put the Bills, who knows? Anything can happen as far as the divisions go. So there is no too hot take. So I'm going to give it to you guys each a point because, you did have fun with it. But so right now, Jake, you're up by 1. Josh, you're both okay. So Jake has 2, Josh has 1. This is you can go negative. So now let's keep it moving, guys. Question number 4: which Miami Dolphins gets his very first Pro Bowl berth? Josh, why don't you take it off?
Yeah, so I had 2 guys down, 1 offense, 1 defense. I'm going to go with the offensive guy. Jake kind of touched on him earlier, but Devon Achane, I think what we saw last season, this guy was an absolute game changer when he was on the field, right? I think the biggest thing that can slow him down isn't defenseman, it isn't a linebacker, it isn't a corner, it's, his health. So he had 800 yards on the ground, 8 touchdowns, almost 8 yards per carry. I think he gets more involved in the passing game, and it's an absolute mismatch nightmare for some of those opposing defenses. So I'm going to go with Devon Achane. I think he does absolutely break out this year, so to speak, but I'm saying that, and I remember they drafted Jalen Wright, so maybe that's not the best take. What about you, Jake? Who do you got?
Yeah, Jake. Go ahead. I was gonna say something, but I want to hear Jake's rebuttal. Go ahead.
Josh, not to be that guy, Josh, can I get your defensive player before I start going? Because I think it's going to be the guy I'm about to say.
I was going to go Zach Sealer. I mean,
here we go.
Okay, so I teed you up, so go for it, man. That's why I'm glad I didn't say it, because then you would have been roughing on. Oh, shit.
Dude, we podcast too much. That's awesome. With 2 answers that are exactly the same. I think people forget that the Dolphins had 56 sacks last year, and Emmanuel Ogbah had 5. You had Andrew Van Ginkel with 6, and then you had Christian Wilkins at 9, Sealer at 10, and Bradley Chubb at 11. Looking at how this Dolphins team is going to look, especially early in the year, Bradley Chubb's a question mark. Jalen Phillips is a question mark. Christian Wilkins isn't there. And we do know Zach Sealer is going to be playing a bunch of snaps. And if the Dolphins do become that first-place team, we are praying to God they become. You become a team that's going to be leaking with Pro Bowlers. They're going to be asking, do you want to join the Pro Bowl? Do you want to join the Pro Bowl? Everyone on your team is going to get a ticket to the Pro Bowl. So when I think about Zach Sealer, and the sheer volume of how often he's going to be on the field, I don't see a way where he doesn't get, maybe not the double-digit sacks again, but 6, 7, 8 sacks, which is so impressive for an interior defensive lineman. And if the Dolphins, that defense is flirting top 10, top 5 going into the playoffs, hopefully, you do see that you get those guys who get no credit, especially in the trenches, especially defensive linemen specifically, start to get some love. And Zach Sealer definitely deserves that. So it really boils down to me just looking around, and if the Dolphins are going to be successful, you'll have the guys, the Jalen Ramseys, that secondary will be solid. But at least for our first couple of weeks, nobody except Zach Sealer is going to be causing too much havoc in the trenches, and I think he's just going to eat up all the stats and have a really good stat line by the end of 17 games.
Okay. Those are both great answers. Jake, I'm going to start with you. If tackles for loss were sacks, I might agree with you. I just don't think that he has the cachet, not everybody, he's not a household name yet, and I don't think he ever will be. He's going to be a Dolphins legend, but I just don't see him. And I think he prefers it that way. I think he's a blue collar, lunch pail kind of guy. He's just not flashy enough. I guarantee you that he's going to do a lot of things to give, to help Calais Campbell and to help Jalen Phillips. These guys, they're going to have huge years. I just don't see. There's too many really good defensive tackles who actually get sacks and have more, box score production. I would say it's just, I love him, and he is the backbone of this team now that Christian Wilkins is gone. I just think that that's way too hot, man. I don't see it happening. There's way too much star power in the AFC. No, it can't. I don't think so. So you popped on over. You're going to lose a point for that one, man. I hope you're right, because I love Zach Sealer. He's one of my favorite players. A lot of Dolphins fans can say that he is one of their favorite players. I just think that he doesn't become a household name. He's just not that kind of guy, not that kind of star power. He's more of a country, keep it, chewing tobacco and, hanging out in the back of the pickup truck. I think he likes it that way.
Wrestle an alligator and live in my van.
Right, yeah. And Josh, I think you're spot on, man. Achane, especially in the first half of the year. So last year, if you remember, he had his worst games towards the end of the season. And he seems like the kind of guy who, you got to be careful how you use him. You don't want to go nuts with him. Especially the first half of the year, I could see Devon Achane starting like the first 5, 6, 7, 8 games, leading the NFL in rushing. Easy. I could definitely see that. And then when the year starts dragging on and we start getting towards, later in the season, we need to start preserving guys. Then they'll probably hold them back a little bit for the playoffs. But I could definitely see Achane starting out the season as the number one guy. So, yeah, absolutely. By the end of the year, will he be the best running back in the whole NFL? Maybe not, but I really think that he's going to be like the star of the first half of the season. So, Josh, you're spot on with that. That's the top of the thermometer without busting. That's 2 points, Josh. You're ahead with one more opportunity for you to get something here. Okay, so
I'm gonna steal your spotlight again. Sorry, real quick. How many games would you guys have to see Devon Achane play to legitimately feel confident about him making the Pro Bowl? So last year you had 11. He had the 800 yards. He was an absolute stud. So would it be, if you see, when is that line where you get legitimately confident? Would it be 14 games? Would you go even lower based on his explosiveness?
I don't know. I don't think he needs to play them all, right? I think 13, 11, 12, around there, that's fine because of who he is. He's the kind of guy who does need rest, and in the NFL these days, we're seeing it more and more. There are a lot of good running backs on the Dolphins, and that's by design. You don't want to break down by the end of the year, and unfortunately, that's probably going to be Achane. He gets nicked up a little bit. They're probably just going to call him out. So I wouldn't be surprised if he misses all these games, but that doesn't matter. I think the production that he has in those 11, 12, 13 games is going to be more than enough. Absolutely. It doesn't matter. He can play 12, 10. I think he could still make it as long as it's not like missing a big chunk. If it's here and there, I think it's totally fine. Just all matters how you end the year for me and getting into playoffs. But Achane's going to be the guy. I think he will make a Pro Bowl this year.
I almost threw 1,500 total yards out there, and I'm sitting here and doing it in my head. I'm like, that's way too high. So we're gonna go maybe like 1,200?
No, I'll let's say 2K, dude. Let's get 1,000 rushing, 1,000 receiving, and
we all joked that this is Chris Johnson. Remember we did the player profiler like comp, and I mean, I don't know, man. After 1 year, shit, he's pretty close.
All right. So somehow Jake pulled away just because he is also an Achane stan like me. So right now, Josh pulled away. Yeah. So right now it's 2-1, and you guys have an opportunity here. Your wildest take for the 2024-2025 Miami Dolphins season. What do you think is going to happen? What's your wildest take? that I could feasibly believe. Oh, okay. We've got a tinfoil hat on, ladies and gentlemen. We have got a tinfoil hat on. Now, I don't know if you saw this, but you know the rapper MIA, Paper Planes?
Yep.
Yep. She came out with a clothing line very recently, within the last couple of days, where all of the products are tinfoil, right? So it'll stop 5G, it'll stop, radio waves, UV. But I mean, I'm talking the hat looks really cool. It's like a bucket hat. And it's reversible, so you can have the tinfoil inside or out if you want. And there's also like a really stylish poncho. So if you guys are interested in, putting your tinfoil hat on and being stylish at the same time, I say go see MIA's page there. I thought that was hilarious. I thought of you immediately when I saw that, Jake.
If that wasn't a sales pitch, I mean, oh my God, that was perfect, man. We got to tweet this clip out and get a sponsor. So, yeah, until you see the price. This thing sounds like it could be very expensive.
It was like $80.
$2. Josh, would you like me to go a little bananas here? Want me to go first? And well, actually, first, Josh.
Definitely.
Please tell me you didn't say the Dolphins win the Super Bowl. I'll walk and come beat you up.
No, and in fact, when we were sitting here thinking, I was going to say, what if I was a dick and just came on here and say the Dolphins will not make the playoffs? And that's just all I said. But that's not my answer. Don't take a point away from me.
Yeah.
Just joking.
So, there have been, in the history of the NFL, 5 teams. The Steelers in 2020, Cardinals in 2008, Colts in 2004, the Falcons in 1995, and the Chargers in 1980. There have been 5 teams that have featured 3 1,000-yard receivers. I'm not here to talk about 3 1,000-yard receivers. The Dolphins are going to be the first team with 4 1,000-yard receivers. And Josh is giving me the look that he's going to say the same exact thing. But so what I'm thinking here is that when Tua Tagovailoa entered the league, like he was known as the blackjack dealer, someone who every single play is going to make the right read. He's going to throw it all around the table. Things change when you add Tyreek Hill to the picture. And I was completely okay with the Tyreek Hill 2K. The dude was making so much money. You squeeze everything you can out of that. He is that good of a player. But entering year 3 of Tyreek Hill in the system, that 1,800 yards we saw in back-to-back years, I think that's going to slightly come down, 1,400, 1,300s, opening the door for Jalen Waddle to get his 1,000, for Devon Achane to get 1,000 as a receiver, and whether it's Jonnu Smith, whether it's Odell Beckham, I genuinely see a scenario here where the Dolphins could have 4 1,000-yard receivers, and if that breaks the thermometer, I'll at least argue that there will be 5 guys who get at least 1,000 total yards, whether it be Raheem Mostert as a rusher, Devon Achane putting the 2 together, and then 3 receivers. So I think the Dolphins are really going to be pushing those 1,000-yard guys in 2024, and that is my hottest take.
Wow. So I don't know how much digging you did into the previous teams that did have the 3 1,000-yard receivers. Was it usually 3 receivers, or was it like multiple positions mixed in there?
I wrote down, so in 2020 with the Steelers, it was Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, and our good old friend Chase Claypool. The 2004 Colts, however, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, and you guys are slightly older than me. So 2004, I was in 4th grade. I was very young.
Clark?
No, not Dallas Clark. Josh, would you like to take a shot at the dark at the 2004 Colts 3rd 1,000-yard receiver? Because it's definitely just dudes talking football with this name.
No, I'm not sure. Go ahead.
Did Adai catch a lot of balls?
Brandon Stokely.
Oh my God.
1,000-yard receiver. Josh gave the stankest face if you're not watching on 560 QAM. But just thinking about the fact that the Colts in 2004, 20 years ago, were able to generate 1,000 yards for Brandon Stokely.
Yeah,
that should be supercharged 20 years later. That's kind of where my brain really got thinking. Where all right, 3,000-yard receivers would be cool, but knowing how Tua operates and knowing that the Dolphins might take a step back from that Tyreek Hill focused offense, I could see them just really just giving everyone fits where you have different guys having monster games every week.
The thing is, yeah, with Achane and his after the catch, right? I mean, if he can make the dump offs big each time. And then Odell Beckham, I could see him just soaking up catches and yards. I mean, it might be like 1,001 and 1,002. Like, it's not going to be much more, but
You're talking yourself into it.
I'm not going to let it bust the thermometer, man. That's good. That's hot. That's crazy. That could happen. It's feasible. It's a little bit possible. You are wearing the tinfoil hat. That's what I like to see. That's 4 points. That's 4 points over here. So it's just that it's arbitrary. I get to decide all the rules to this. So I'm sorry.
It's literally my favorite part about this is your attitude. It's just like, F you guys. I'm going to say, I love it. This is perfect.
All right, Josh. So that was absolutely insane.
Yeah. So you're ready for me? I actually took a picture of my Word document, so I'm going to do my best to read this. But
okay.
For me, the biggest thing is, and I wrote down a bunch of things, but I think the Dolphins are going to shatter, every franchise record. I don't have written down every franchise record. It just sounded really nice to say that. Last season, they had 496 points. That was second in the NFL. The Cowboys led it with 509, which ranked 22nd all time. I looked it up. The most ever was by the Denver Broncos back in 2013 when they scored 606 total points. So I'm going to say not only will the Dolphins have the most points scored in the history of the NFL, I also had written down that Tua Tagovailoa will break 5,000 yards receiving. Tyreek Hill will have 5,000 yards passing. Tyreek Hill will have 2,000 yards receiving. Tua Tagovailoa will have over 30 touchdown passes, and he will win MVP this year. Dolphins will win the AFC East. They will also defeat the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. So how's that for your mind?
That's good. That's good. Can you guys help me out with a little bit of math here? So 606 is the current record. No. 606 is the current record by the Broncos, right? So the Dolphins would have to have 607. So how many points per game would that be? 607 divided by, I'm going to have to get a calculator. So this is going to be
36 points per game.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you. 36 points per game. Sounds kind of crazy. Sounds a little wild. I can get down with that, though. So basically that would mean there's not a lot of room for error if that's the case. So that means you have to put up offensive showing that's against, the Bills twice a year, the Jets twice. It's not that crazy, though. We saw 70 points against the Broncos. It can happen, man. I can see it happening. If there is a team that does it, it's got to be this one. It has to be.
And let's think about those Broncos teams. Demaryius Thomas, rest in peace, an absolute stud. Tyreek Hill. Jalen Waddle versus Eric Decker. Or no, was that Emmanuel Sanders? It might have been Emmanuel.
I would say Sanders, but Decker was there too.
I think I'd take Waddle over Sanders. And Josh, did you happen to see who was the running back? Oh, it was
Knowshon Moreno.
Knowshon was the muscle? No, not Doug Martin. No, there was some other a vet there for a year, I think.
I know Julius Thomas was there, and he had some big ones.
Julius Thomas was awesome at tight end, double-digit touchdowns. I think that could be kind of not the Jonnu Smith, but the Jody Fortson. Would you really be surprised if you have Jody Fortson with that should have been one of my weird takes, 13 receptions and 5 of them be touchdowns? That would not be the most. No, Sean Marino, I'm sorry, you're right. 241 rushes for 1,038 yards. Eric Decker, Demaryius Thomas, Wes Welker, Julius Thomas. So it was before Emmanuel Sanders. But if you want to put up Eric Decker, Demaryius Thomas, and Wes Welker to Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Odell Beckham, tinfoil hats on, there might be some bias. I don't know how you don't take the Dolphins, right?
Yeah. It could happen. Of all teams, they're the ones. But I'd be careful about getting excited for a toolsy tight end who, or not even toolsy, just for tight ends. I want to see it because I was excited for, who was it? Eric Studa, who's the tight end that they drafted, that they signed last year?
Yeah, yes. I was gonna say Studesville. That was our.
Oh no, there was Tyler Croft. There was the guy from the Broncos.
Saubert, yeah, he had the tattoo on the sleeve. Yeah,
that's how he was going to come in and grab 5-6 passes.
McDaniel still thinks Tanner Connor's going to do something.
That's true too, dude. That's true.
Yeah, tight end. That's my favorite position, but it's also the biggest crapshoot. I remember not that long ago. Well, it was long ago. We were talking about the tight ends here on a podcast, and the way we were talking about these guys for only 4 of them to end up having great seasons. I was expecting one of the biggest tight end years ever, and a few of them kind of were not exciting. We were talking about Darnell Washington like he was the next coming of Gronk, and he didn't exactly do very much. So just be careful with tight ends, I would say.
The reason I think Jonnu Smith is a little different, though, is that breakaway speed and how well this Mike McDaniel offense attacks space. And one of my favorite stats is there's been one tight end to go over 20 miles per hour since the start of 2022, and it was Jonnu Smith who did it twice. So I don't necessarily know. Like, I think I could see him being that great, the 20-20 guy that just gets you through the middle of the field. Everyone's so focused of getting beat by Tyreek or Waddle deep, where Jonnu gets something underneath and all of a sudden he turns 4 yards into 24. That's where I could see that happening. But otherwise, outside of just like that move the sticks tight end, I don't think the Dolphins necessarily are going to be focused that way. I agree with you, Efren.
I mean, I would love it. I mean, he's going to get to play New England twice a year, and maybe show off like, hey, I'm back, baby.
That's true.
I like Jonnu Smith a lot. I'm glad that he's on board. But yeah, I'm just really excited, guys. Thank you so much for letting me come and be here. Thank you for taking that hat off. I really appreciate it. You guys letting me come here and just completely make a mess of your show for an hour. Wow, I appreciate your guys' patience with me. And yeah, this is fun. I love it every time. I'm just really excited for this season. Basketball's over. I'm digging deep in football now. I live right around the corner from Bill's training camp, so I'm gonna take some tickets there, and I'll do some recon for you guys, and I'll let you know what I see. So,
we'd love to, even the day of you going to camp or something. We'd love to have you on just to talk about that.
We want to picture you in that little ditch that they have there. We want to make sure you get a picture of that, and that could be the image for our podcast.
I got to be careful. I got to go there incognito. So
it's true.
Yeah. So.
I love that you're kind of building us up a little bit before you tell us who won. I respect that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's going to be Jake. You pushed it over the top. So Josh, your take was good, but honestly, all the things you said, it's going to happen, baby. It's not even that high. We're going to break the record for the most points scored. Tua, 5,000. Everything you said is going to happen. But Jake, 4,000-yard receivers, man. I did say, yeah, it's just it almost broke it, but no. Yeah.
3 was pretty spicy, and then he's like, I'm not even going to say 3. I'm going 4, and I was like, oh, I lost.
No, I think I said I did give you the points, but that was just too hot, too crazy. You know what? Let's just say that you guys tied to keep it nice and clean, and I don't want to stick, anything in between my favorite ADP boys. So I appreciate you guys playing along. Only I know the true winner, and you guys will never know. But again, thanks for having me on. I'm more than happy to do this anytime. And the next time I come on, I think it's going to be a little bit crazier. I think that it's time for another adventure.
Oh, dude, I would absolutely love. I would love another adventure. And that's kind of the thing, man. It's the off season. We are on board to get crazy. We're on board to do things like this. And man, it's so great to have you back. It's so great to talk with you. And that's what makes this like. That sounds so preachy, but just guys talking dudes about the Miami Dolphins. Josh and I met in the DMs. We met at Dolphins at what I don't even know what it'd be. It'd just be at the facility 2 days before a game. Like right. That's what makes everyone Dolphin fans. Whether you're listening to us when you're driving through South Florida, or you're listening to us shoveling snow in the middle of February, like we're still just as miserable as you, and we're gonna get through that together. Sorry if that was a little loud. But that is it. That is all the time we have today on Another Dolphins podcast. Thank you so much, Efren Ramos, for joining us. Be sure to follow him on Finn's Cuts. Joshua Houtz, always at HOUTZ Houtz. If you didn't listen to our last show, go back there and check out Dan Moreno, host of La Fin Equip, talking about Richmond Webb and his Hall of Fame candidacy. We also answered your questions. We are giving away a copy of NCAA College Football 25. If you want to know how to enter, go listen to another podcast. I talk about it a bunch, but that is all the time we have. Go have a great week. We will talk to you soon, but until next time, fins up.
Fins up.
Fins up.